Welcome to Wednesday, April 1st. No fooling, folks. It is going to be really cold here over the next 48 hours, although most of you will experience some pretty mild temperatures today. Thursday and Friday will feel like February. Temperatures are going to be as much as 25 to 35 degrees below average. Poor travel and livestock weather conditions through early Friday. Rebounding temperatures are coming our way this upcoming weekend. But the next 48 hours will not be fun, especially for those of you who feel cooped up and who doesn't and want to get outside. Well, you've got a little bit of an opportunity here early today before the winter weather comes in Thursday and Friday, and we'll show you what's transpiring and why. First of all, over the next 3 days, this is what the precipitation forecast looks like across the Intermountain West. You can see this blue area. The blue areas here is where we're going to have the heavier snow. And you can see that there's a strip that goes southwest to northeast across south central Wyoming through central and east central Wyoming up to near the Black Hills, up through and near the Rapid City area. So eastern Colorado and the Front Range of Colorado really not going to see a lot out of this system, but certainly Wyoming, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota, some of the Wasatch Front here, all going to get into the act with some wintry weather conditions. This axis right here could end up a little more north, or it probably will end up a little bit further south than the model shows. So it could be more like this as the system sinks in with some really cold Canadian air coming in behind it. This is what the snowfall output looks like. And again, you can see the heavier snow is underneath that heavier band. And again, we think this is probably going to end up a little bit south. But central, east central Wyoming, southwest areas of South Dakota, the northern part here of the Nebraska Panhandle, and then back along I-80 here, well, and into the mountains of northern Colorado is where the bulk of the heavier snow will fall. And this is going to be a very good chance of most of this will be snow. It will start off as rain, and there will even be a little bit of thunderstorm activity here in southeastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, and some areas of far northern Colorado later today as this front approaches and moves on through. So be ready for winter weather. By our standards, this is not a big spring snowstorm, but some snow combined with some really cold temperatures will make it just downright nasty. These are our temperatures relative to average by noon on Thursday. So you can see there's a spot right here in northeastern Wyoming near Gillette of 34 degrees below normal with temperatures. So a lot of purple on this map. This is a very cold air mass for early April. They happen. We've seen this before, but when you look at averages and you look at where you're skewed towards normal, this is a really big drop in temperature that's coming. So we want to really hit hard anyone that is in calving operations to protect livestock for a good 48 hours from this impending cold snap. These are our overnight low temperatures by Friday morning. These are temperatures in Fahrenheit, not Celsius. And anywhere you see it gray, these are temperatures that are single digits to maybe even below zero. There's that pocket there in northeastern Wyoming. But look at these temperatures, teens, lower 20s. Now we're talking early April. So this is a very cold wave that's coming, with Wyoming really in the bullseye of the coldest temperature reading. So when you wake up Friday morning, it will not feel like April at all. However, we will see some rebounding temperatures this weekend, and we'll show you that here in a minute. This is where we are right now. High pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. We know what that means. For those of you that watch these videos, the Gulf of Alaska ridge means we're in the fridge, and that's what's coming. Here comes the wave, bringing in that colder Canadian air and that Pacific moisture. This system is going to be moving through, and by Friday morning, you can see the trough is now bottoming out across the central Rockies, and that colder Canadian air has an easy time to come on in. However, this will be going a little bit more like this, and this will in turn allow a westerly flow to come in this weekend. So this is by Saturday afternoon into Sunday. So cold through Friday, moderating temperatures this weekend into Monday and Tuesday. Now, what happens with this guy right here is going to be something that we're going to watch going forward, because we have some disagreements in the models, of course, and we'll talk about that here at the end of the podcast about maybe why we're having so many problems with the models. But first of all, this is where we are by late Saturday and the Sunday. By next Tuesday, that low, this guy up here in British Columbia, comes down the coast into California, and then we get a closed low by Tuesday. Now, this will keep us, generally speaking, in a fairly mild pattern in the Intermountain West with southwest flow. But this closed low here, if it does close off and breaks off from the main jet stream flow here, well, this could spell problems later, and this is why. By late next week, that closed low comes to where? The magic Four Corners area. Now, the European model, the Canadian models want to show this. The American model, the GFS model we call it, doesn't have this low here at all. This is something, this feature right here, we'll be watching to see if it develops. If it does, Friday and Saturday, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th of April, we got to watch this guy right here. We've seen this pattern before with other April storms, so we'll put a bug in your ear. This is way off, but this is something we'll keep an eye on for late next week, and it'll be fun, if you're a weather watcher, to watch it. But it is a pattern we've seen before, and look at the cold air spilling into the Great Lakes in New England. So everybody is going to share in the colder weather misery in the month of April, at least for the first 2 weeks of the month. Now, I want to show you something here. This is not a stock market plot. Notice this giant drop here. What I'm showing you, although there is a correlation to the stock market and the weather here lately, but what we're showing you with this graph is what is produced quite frequently, and that is how well the computer models are doing. This compares the European model right here with the American model and the Canadian model. I won't go in the weeds here, but I want to show you that this is sort of the baseline. If we have the weather forecast above this line here, they're generally, the computer models are generally doing pretty good, meaning you're going to have some reliability 120 hours out. So your 5-day forecast, we're, well, okay. You can see there were some certain times here of going below. But notice what's happened here over the last 2 weeks. The computer models, each and every one of them, the European, the American models, and the Canadian models, have gone down. And when you reach this area here, you get to the point where the models are almost really not usable out to 5 days. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, it's spring. It's the spring transition. Computer models tend to average poorly in winter, spring, summer to fall transition timeframes. However, due to the coronavirus and the sharp drop in air traffic across the globe, we have seen this affect the computer models. And why is that? Well, there is a new system that is put on a lot of aircraft that go across the oceans across the globe. Your long-haul flights like New York to London, San Francisco to Tokyo, those types of flights. Some of the flights are equipped with a piece of equipment called an AMDAR, which helps report winds aloft, humidity aloft, flight altitude winds at that jet stream level across the oceans, because the oceans of the world have very little weather data. Very little weather data is gathered over the oceans, and this is one big problem with computer modeling. Well, they use aircraft to help fill in the gaps, and since we do not have nearly as many flights across the oceans, we're losing weather data over the oceans, and this has shown a real weakness in the modeling. You don't have that good high-level data over the oceans coming in, well, your models are going to suffer. This shows you, again, why you have to be so careful with models, especially weather and climate models. All models are wrong. Some are useful. But when they get this wrong here, this becomes a real challenge for the weather forecaster, especially during the change in the spring season as we make our transition. So not only is the virus causing impacts with everything, now it's affecting computer models when it comes to weather forecasting. And while they may be able to fill in some of the gaps with some satellite data, until we get aircraft going across the oceans at the rate they were before, we're going to be looking at weather forecasts out in that 5-day period that are going to be very poor. So again, I tell folks this all the time. Your 5 and 10-day forecasts are not to be relied on, and now they're really not to be relied on. Thanks for watching the Day Weather Podcast and listening. We'll talk to you on Thursday.